Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Martin Lucas. Martin and I are going to talk about what you can do to prepare for the world in 2021. Martin, where can people find you anyway on LinkedIn and where's the best place to get hold of you?
I would say LinkedIn's probably the easiest place, so they can. I'm always up for a WhatsApp. I let people submit any problem that they want as just a free thing that I always do when I'm on any podcast and stuff as well. So I'm on 07743 482 437. But we'll need to figure out in this session if I can actually solve problems for people, right?
Yeah. So you have a really interesting background, which why don't you explain what you did 4 years ago?
Yeah, so in April 2015, I sold a business that I had, I sold a property that I had, and over the years I'd built up hundreds of theories, and it was all built on this one consistent gap that I'd identified in the why don't humans understand humans? So I spent 4 years researching, testing, I looked at over 24 different academic disciplines, and I wanted to understand the whole picture about how we humans think and how we can serve each other and understand each other better. And then I got 36 case studies over those 4 years, and then took the business to market commercially early 2019. So helping businesses grow and save money, which is a big thing in COVID at the moment, but it's all anchored around understanding the cognition, how humans think and how to serve them better.
So just in terms of some context around the fact how we know that people don't understand how people think. When we did the prep call, you basically mentioned to me that digital marketing, for example, has a 98% failure rate.
Yes.
So can you just take me through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, what's true in 2015 is still exactly the same today in 2020. And that's your click-through rates, which is one of your key marketing metrics, right? So people look at an advert, they click on it, right? That's your number one thing, because if they don't click on it, they're not going to look at the product. If they don't look at the product, they're not going to buy it, right? So your CTR, as it's known, is your key thing. Google has a CTR of 1.91%. Facebook is 1.61%. And programmatic and display advertising, the stalker type ads, you look at a product on a website and suddenly you get hounded about that product for days, has a 0.35%. Just those three areas combined, that's 98.81% of ads get ignored, and that's $265 billion worth of spend.
So based on the global spend of digital marketing, that's 200 and something $billion wasted.
Yes, absolutely wasted. And the same problem is true in TV, in email, in communications, in sales activity, and lead generation. So there was a consistent gap. And thanks for calling it out, because I do use that digital one is the most obvious one, because everybody experiences it day in, day out. Most people are on Facebook and they know they're getting hit up with emails that don't matter to them, that don't mean anything to them. Adverts, sorry, not emails.
And that's what you mean when you say that humans don't understand humans, because the whole point of having an advert is that I look at an advert and immediately go, wow, I need to buy that.
Yeah, it's relevant to me. That's the biggest thing that I think that we've lost in the past 20 years. And I'm not anti-technology at all. I use that as in the pharmaceutical world, they talk about the full digestion period, right? So you have to go, if you've got a new drug and you've got a new pill or something like that, you go to the local government in a country and you get signed off, right? And it's quite a simple, short process. But to understand any drug, it takes actually 15 to 20 years to understand the full digestion period of actually what the impact is. And I apply that type of science and thinking to everything that I work on. And one of them is the digital economy, right? We've been running it for just over 20 years now. And I think we're starting to see the impact of it. And in a business sense, it means a lot of the things that we do just don't work. And I think that's evidenced very strongly with that. So you've got a situation where all of us as customers and consumers and B2B decision makers, we know that we're getting hit with a lot of irrelevance. But on the business side, people are kind of okay with it because nobody's got a better solution. And there's all kinds of models to measure it that say, well, 1.61% is okay. Or Facebook, for example, are sending all their sales staff out saying, don't worry about clicks, it's about impressions. Because if people see it, eventually they'll come back to us, which is completely false. But then Facebook make a lot of money. So what do I know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So let's get back to what we wanted to do. So how is it that we can prepare ourselves for the world in 2021?
Well, I think it's a great thing. I mean, the first thing to note is that COVID is here to stay.
Yeah.
So I've got a friend who's quite senior in another country's government, and he believes that it's going to go on for just under 2 years from now. He predicted that we would get this second wave that's happened. So, and that's not me scaremongering. I have no interest in doing that whatsoever. I think we just have to accept that this kind of weird scenario that we've got in life, we have to adapt to it. It's not going to be here forever, but if we don't adapt to it, then we're going to miss out on our success as individuals, particularly in a career sense, which is what we're looking at today, right? And I think part of it means that we've got to understand ourselves a little bit better and adapt to the tools that we've got in hand. So for me, that's like a variety of different things that I want to cover today. One is the understanding our habit loop. I think a lot of people miss that component. Another part is self-belief. So it's really up to you, Tim, where you wanted to start.
Well, let's talk about the habit loop. Explain that to me.
Yeah, so we've got millions of habits inside our brain, right? And the brain's job, and this is really, really important, the brain's job is to automate as much as possible.
Yes.
So it wants you to do the least amount of thinking possible. That's literally the brain's job. And that's fine when it comes to how we dress ourselves or how we make ourselves a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, because we need those type of things, right? And we'd never leave the house if we have to think about them all day, every day. But your habit loop comes into every other type of decision making that you make. So we humans have got, and these crazy numbers, but it's the reality, we've got over 180 different types of bias, right?
Yeah.
And most of our bias gets locked into our system, into our brain by the time we're 14 years old. 14 to 21 is when you adult upskill a little bit. Yeah. I'm 42 and I'm still at it, but in theory, that's what happens, right? And what's scary about that is that most of your decision making is being driven by these millions of habits that go inside your brain when you were a child.
Yeah.
And those habit loops affect people that you hang out with, the decisions that you make and how you do things. And we've got a very simple process when it comes to habits. You've got a trigger, right? So I'm naked, I need to get dressed, right? Then I've got a routine of how I put on clothes, and then you've got the reward, I'm dressed, right? We humans have got that continuous loop of how we do habits. The wonderful thing is that if you can understand it and you've got awareness of your own habits, then you can optimize it and start to change it. And that's one of the things that I wanted to raise about today, because if COVID is here to stay, which we know it is, we've all got an opportunity to make sure that we don't cause our own problems by doing the same things that we've always done, when we just have to adapt to what is a very different world for people at the moment.
Yeah, when we were on holiday, we went to France in the summer, and we got used to. We created a habit of putting masks on,
right?
And it was just, you carry one with you, and one's in the car, and it's just a case of it's a habit, and then you do it.
Yeah, and it's great. And these physical habits is quite easy for people to understand and to get their heads around, right? I dress myself, I know that I've got a fixed way of doing that, right? But how we think is a habit, and how we talk is a habit. And if we just pause on that for a second, like really examine what we're talking about, is that I call it click, click, whir, right? And there's a famous author that wrote about this kind of stuff as well, is that we automate a lot of what we do. So we go into conversations where a lot of the times we've already got an idea of what the person's saying, so we're not listening to them. We've got an idea of where that direction is going to go, so we sell to them in the same way that we've always sold to them. Yes. We market to them in the same way we've always sold them, right? And that's just getting into why humans don't understand humans, because what I term as the efficiency trick, the brain trying to automate as much as possible, is the biggest problem that gets created in the business sense. Because whether it's us as an individual or the collective of a brand, we're naturally selfish because we do things based on what has worked for us before and how we think and how we feel. So we just repeat something that limits what our opportunity is. And that gets even further exacerbated with COVID. If we just rewind like a few months, 6 months, I guess, we're getting on for time, right?
Yeah.
All the brands that copied that, let's be safe. And then they had the same art going out for every single advert. And most brands were really late to it. Not everyone's Lego. Lego's a brand that just never does anything wrong. And they came out really quickly during COVID and said, we're going to put 50 million into our foundation. Here's what our foundation does, and we're going to make a difference doing it. So there's various different ways that you can cut it up. But the first thing to note is that how you think and how you talk is a habit. And if you don't pause and understand what that is and how you're currently doing things, and I guarantee you that you're causing problems that is going to limit your success.
So let's talk about those habits and the type of habits that we need in 2021. And I totally agree with you. I think that well, we see so many companies marketing on the basis of buy my product because it's great.
Right.
And then what happens is that all of their competition market exactly the same way.
Right.
And what I don't think people understand is that our own brains have moved on from that, because we have access to one of these, and we know that what we can do is go online and search for an infinite amount of data.
Yes.
And actually, people coming to us saying buy my product because it's great actually makes them look A, old-fashioned, and B, desperate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things about that. One is that I'll just run down a few different things that's been affected by that type of behavior by brands, right? And by individuals within those brands and individual salespeople. And it's like the same kind of course of action of what you've got. Number one is that we're beset by generational thinking. So that's one of the issues, like just a subset of the efficiency trick. And generational thinking is where we can make assumptions and not understand the community and problem we're trying to solve. So if we go back to the end of last year, think about the army campaign, where it was talking about snowflakes and binge gaming and stuff like this, and making all kinds of assumptions that its working class target market was sitting doing generational analysis of its entire generation and everything that went with it. It had no reality of the actual world and the problem it was solving. Visually, it was good, the A to B of what it was showing, but not the actual problem of what people were experiencing. If we fast forward into this year, as much as we're making jokes about it, brands are just doing some really terrible things where they're stuck in their existing habits of, I've got a product, buy my product. Here's a discount for my product. Now I'm having a semi-annual sale. It's things like that, right? It just kills opportunity for people. So there's definitely a generational thinking. And my first advice to people is you've got to understand the market that you're actually serving. What problem do you actually solve for them? And there's a really quick download. A neuroscientist will tell you that human decision-making is based on a need. And a psychologist will tell you that human decision-making is based on an emotion. My whole point of what I've been working on for all these years and proven time and time again is that neither's right and neither's wrong. But if you don't account for needs and emotions, then what you're left with is price, right? And how often do we see something, here's my product, here's a discount. Yeah. And there's no value to that. And the next thing that comes with that, in my opinion, is that you've got to understand the problem that you solve for people. And the problem that you solve for people is very much a reward. So we humans are addicted creatures. So 95% of our decisions are based on emotions, the psychology metric that I spoke about. Neuroscientists say a similar number about a need. The point is that humans are looking for rewards in everything they do. So my holding a door open for Tim thanking me for coming on to his show and things like that, they're partial rewards. And as you mentioned, being able to go out and research and use our phones and find out all kinds of insights about products we're interested in, that's types of rewards as well. It's not just the point of sale, but these types of things matter, from how we deliver to how we package. But above all else is that we've got to understand the problem that we're solving for people. And I think that's a huge opportunity in B2B. Because the big
and do you see that as being partly being solved by social media, or how do you see social media basically coming into that?
I think it should be getting solved by social media. The problem that I have is that most of the time people are hitting me up as a CEO of a high growth business. I'm interested in services. We've got capital. We've got the capabilities to buy services that would help us grow. But what people are sending me is what I call product manual mindset. Right. So they basically list the product. Yep. They list a bunch of bullet points and they say, get in contact if any of this is of interest. I'm like, you've just listed practical services. There is no interest in that for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that social media has wonderful opportunity, but how people use it is really, really quite backwards, really. We're not pausing to think. We're trying to automate too much. And that's where I risk sounded anti-technology, but it's the automation that's causing people the most amount of problems. I think one of the things that we see that there is the problem, which is that people, if you think about advertising was devised in the 1930s. Yeah. And the idea there was basically I interrupt you and I broadcast a message. And back in the 1930s, it worked really well because there wasn't the internet. There wasn't, actually people liked adverts because it could show you what was going on. It kind of informed your way of life. If you think about
I wonder where the yellow went when I brushed my teeth with Pepsodent. What that did was it actually informed us, because we were looking for a middle class way of life, was the fact that we needed whiter teeth, and therefore we bought it. Fast forward 90 years, past the fax machine and the Sony Walkman and all those bits of technology that have gone in the past, we're still trying to do that. So what happens is that we get someone will connect to us on LinkedIn, and basically within a week later they pitch to us the services, and it's just an interrupt.
Yeah, I'm with you. You just said some amazing things. Couple of different things about habit loops, right? So Pepsodent, and we didn't prep this, so it's funny that you raised that. Pepsodent became the #1 toothpaste in the United States in the era that we spoke about, because they were the first one to add a flavor.
Right.
Because what they had as a habit loop was people were using it, but they wouldn't repeat use it.
Right.
So what they needed was a sensory association. So the taste was actually what they got people to repeat using, because the taste was the word in the brain. So nice little habit loop one.
Yeah. Absolutely. I get it now. Yeah, because you clean your teeth and you get that taste. Yeah.
So it was a nice little loop in there. Going back to the core of what we're speaking about when it comes to social media, if you think about what was great about the golden age of advertising, as we call it, from the 30s to the 50s, was that they were addressing problem solving and needs, right? But there was also a limited number of voices that the customer could hear, right? Because it's either radio, it's TV, they're in the cinema, they've bought a newspaper. There was only so many outlets you could do. Whereas fast forward to what we're dealing with today, we're going into a decade where there's too many voices.
Yeah.
So we've got this choice paradox going on. Like I joke about video on demand, right? We've gone from watching a 9 p.m. movie in the house to watching a movie round about 9:26, when you put on something that nobody's particularly happy with, but everyone's a little bit frustrated, so you move on with it, right? We've got too much choice. Now look at that from a social media point of view. I'm expressly saying that I've had 4 businesses. I'm not against hearing people that have got something interesting to say that can trigger me. My business is interested in growth. It's not difficult to figure that out, right? And what I'm getting hit up with is endless messages. Me. These are my products. Doesn't tell me what they do. Doesn't tell me the benefit. Doesn't tell me what's in it for me. Hasn't looked at my website. Don't understand me. Don't reference anything to do with me. And that's the problem that we've got. And that's a sales problem. It's a marketing problem. It's an advertising problem. Like the ability to, if we think that, like the 1.61%, the Facebook stuff, the 1.91% of Google, the 0.35%, if we've got an entire generational thinking because of the digital economy, and I don't mean generational thinking in terms of particular age, but if everybody thinks that percentage is okay, then they're going to think it's okay to send 100 messages on LinkedIn, and if 1.5 people respond, that's okay. And
we had a guy who he's using a tool, and he's getting a 6% return, and he said that was okay.
My point is what is it actually costing you in terms of business, reputation, and trust?
I know. And if you did it another way, you'd get a bigger return. We're getting bigger returns, using our methodology than 6%. So marketing today is based on waste. It's about it's about how much as a business are we willing to put up with?
Yeah. And it's the wastage thing for me was my ongoing frustration, which I fueled into a business, right? I always take frustration, turn it into a fuel, figure out how I can solve the problem or let it go.
Yeah.
And it's that wastage. The thing that frustrated me was that there's got to be a better way from it. And I know that you're doing very well from what you're doing, and kudos to it. And I'd love to hear more about how it works and why it works. The fundamental for me is that target people that you can help.
Yeah.
Explain to them how you can help them. Don't just puke up a product manual and hope that they do all the work in the investigation. That's the part that we've lost, is that we're asking people that aren't even prospects, suspects, to do all the investigation to find out if we're worth looking at. And that's not sales. It's not human. It's not engagement. It just seems nuts to me, no?
So what is it that people can do? What is it that we need to be getting ready for in 2021? Because I don't think that we recognize how much the world has changed. And I still think we'll look back in 5 years and go, we were just too close to doing what we were doing before. So what is it that we could be doing on social that could be better?
Well, one is you've got to look at the headline strategy about what you're working on, like what's in it for people, what you actually sell, and not what your product and service could do, but the thing that would most interest them that's going to get a reaction in the first place. So I can tell you that on the 15th of April, I decided that nothing was going to stop me for all this work that I'd put in for 4 years with no income, got the business, got the team together, and we doubled down on revenue protection. Because we can grow businesses, but the main thing that we're doing as well is that we can take 18 to 26% of savings out of people's advertising spend, right? So we focused on that. And that's what gets people's interest to then have a conversation. And then we explain all the other things that we can do and we make it super relevant, right? And that's the number one thing for me, is that if you understand the context, you can make it more relevant. If you understand what's relevant, you understand the context. It's just a beautiful tag team of what you can put together. So it starts with understanding that strategy. What problem are you solving for people? Then the next part is who you're actually solving that problem for. I mean, it feels like I'm explaining things that are relatively basic, but people are missing, right? And what we're really talking about is who you're solving the problem for relative to COVID.
Yeah.
What has changed during COVID, right? And the thing that I'm always saying to, particularly to B2B software sales people and businesses, and we've got a few clients on our books at the moment, is that you have to get into the buyer's mindset. And too often we're doing the business mindset.
Yep.
And what the difference being is that for a business, we can do this and we can do these things, blah, blah, blah. The buyer is currently dealing with a lot of stress, no matter what their job is, a lot of stress because of COVID, extra thinking, extra effort, extra work. If you don't make it easier for me to implement and to understand and to make it relevant to me, then I'm just going to ignore it because I'm too busy and I'm too stressed out. And that's been exacerbated by COVID.
Yes.
That's a big starting point for me.
I think that what's happened is that we don't understand what's going on. What we've done is we've covered it with platitudes, or as you would say, we've tried to automate it, because what we do is we start every email saying, I hope your family is okay in these current times.
Yeah.
And that then basically we think that stops us having to do anything, and then we immediately go into our pitch.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Actually, I discovered this last week. I love an origin story, and the how are you stuff that you just mentioned, right? Hope your family's okay. How are you today, right?
Yeah.
First of all, the reason why people do that is a habit that we've adapted from a pre-digital age. It was actually done when people were canvassing doorstops,
right,
or telephone selling, right? Because it was a way to generate trust and engagement, which is where we go next with the social stuff. And people have adapted it into the digital world. So nothing infuriates me more when somebody sends me a message that doesn't know me.
Yes.
And even the people that do know me in a business sense, I'm like, I don't know your family situation. We've got a business relationship. Don't ask me about my family. Let's just get to it. That's more.
I agree. I don't know why they wasted time with it. They're going to try and pitch to me. Just pitch to me.
Yeah.
And I'll just delete the email. Yeah. So, but.
It's actually become a red flag to me. If somebody sends me a message saying, how are you today? I ignore it because I know it's a sales message.
Yeah, it's just like,
then I just scroll through it, right?
It's just like, some of the spams you get where, I got one today where, I'm a respectable banker, and you get to the point with a respectable banker, you go, well, you're not, so delete, so, you just know what's coming. So you just delete it.
I love what you just spoke about, because we're doing some work at the moment for in the automotive industry and in the fashion industry, two really big billion-dollar brand projects. And what we find is a lot of what we call emotive but meaningless language.
Right.
So it's where people will say a fabulous word like I'm a reputable, right, or I've got an amazing track record, right, but then don't actually what I call ice the cake. They don't explain it. They don't give any relevance to it. So it's just like it's a flashy word that has no meaning to it. And actually what you do with that is what we call positive negative language, in that the brain takes it on board, analyzes it in a microsecond,
yep,
and takes it as a negative. It becomes a negative seed. Because
if you say reputable, you mean you're unreputable?
Yeah.
Is there such a thing as unreputable? Unprofessional. Well, is there unprofessional?
Yeah. Well, did you used to be unprofessional and you've just learned to be professional?
Yeah.
So the why don't humans understand humans? What we're speaking about is there's a lot of logic that should go into behavior. And that comes back to social media for me being about trust, right? So on our phones, we've got a direct psychological connection into our phones, right? Yep. It's why you get trolls. It's why people, if they're not feeling particularly good, will say things that they shouldn't say, because we don't connect like in terms of if we're explaining something, we're conscious of it, right? We're generally saying it and we're aware or should be aware of what we're saying. But often when we're putting stuff on social media, we don't take that time, right? It's just an automatic thing. And I think that's where the challenge of social media is one of trust.
Yep.
If you can establish trust, then I can understand who you are, then I can accept you. And that's a huge thing to do with social media.
Yes.
And that's where I see a lot of the opportunity. Do you find that with the people that you work with, that's a big part of it?
I personally think that trust is a big thing. And I mean, we use our phones as comfort blankets.
Right.
If you're feeling down or whatever, you pick the phone up, you go to it. It's a go-to thing. And social media is exactly the same. The difference is that there's a guy called Simon Kemp who produces research for Hootsuite and We Are Social. The new one's just to come out actually within the next couple of days. And social media has changed from being a place we went to actually something that we now live in. But trust is paramount. But you can build trust very, very quickly. Because if I've connected to you, we've had a conversation, we've had 30 minutes, we've done this. I would say that I trust you, Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if we break it down, I don't know you from Adam, but so you can build trust quickly. But trust is paramount. Yes.
I think it comes down to one's ability to listen. And there's many layers of listening, and I don't mean it in the trite salespeople don't listen type way. I mean, it's fair. I trained over 5,000 salespeople, and one of my previous businesses was sales training. There's a constant thing that I was trying to teach people. But we have to be able to listen and observe our market. So listening is directly like what you said, a 30-minute call, understand the person, right? But listening has also got more dimensions to it than that. So, for example, the reciprocity rule, the ability to thank and be aware of others, it's amazing what you can do if you have a 30-minute call with somebody and you take the right notes, and when you've got a follow-up with them, even if it's not related to business or money, like if you're just referencing things back to them that makes them understand and feel appreciated, then you can start to bond with people, and that's a huge part about it.
Yeah.
Takes me on to social proof is one of the biggest psychological principles you can ever come across is getting the real truth of what you did to help customers and showing it to customers that are like them. Don't talk about your product. Don't talk about your services. The problem that you solved and who else you've solved it for that's relevant to me. I mean, that's a big part of your goals right there, right?
I think so. I think we are we've become cynical. And we know that if a brand says our product is great, we'll go, yeah, well, of course you'll say that. It's the same with employees. If you get employees to say our product is great, you'll go, well, yes, of course you'll say that.
Right.
I remember there was a report on employee advocacy that came out, and there was a fact. There was one of the bits of research which didn't appear in the front, which was that actually nobody believes anybody that if an employee says something about their company, the first thing that you will think is, of course you'll say that because you're biased.
Right.
And what you have to do, this is the trust thing. What you're doing as an employee is building trust. If you're authentic, if you're providing insight, as in tell me something I don't know, being educational, that's the point where you build the trust, not using your employees as a mechanism to spread more, buy my product because it's great.
Yeah, I did an interview on Forbes about this, talking about a couple of different things from what you're saying. It's really cool. One is the employee engagement surveys. The reason that they're like 60 questions long is that they're designed to hit decision fatigue, which means that we get mentally tired, so we just want to start scoring everything as a 10.
Yeah.
So it underscores the whole point of it in the first place, right? And then the other thing about it is that the vulnerability and the truth of it is what people hide behind. They don't want to find out actually what the truth is, but there's a lot of value that comes from it. If you can get advocacy from your employees, then you're winning. And that comes into care. And that's what I was talking about in the Forbes interview, was that this idea of business values, they're just mainly done as a waste of time. A couple of key things. One is if you've got more than 4, then you're wasting your time, because the brain can only chunk 4 key pieces of information at a time. If it's a single word in a sentence or a single word with a paragraph, then that's just being done for PR purposes. My point is that it needs to be actionable and short, like a sentence, and people can engage with it, understand, and other people, meaning not employees, can buy into it as well. So there's always a huge disconnect between what a business says it does and what employees believe and can stand behind. And when you get it right, which is rare, it's incredibly powerful.
So Martin, just because time's getting on,
Sure.
you had 5 dimensions of being human for social selling. Have we covered them all? I'm actually because we've been discussing, I can't remember where we are in terms of the
that's a good way to wrap up, actually. So the this comes from multiple different academic disciplines, meaning that you've got a common truth, right?
Yeah.
So the 5 dimensions of being human they're not optional, they're inside all of us.
Right.
There's common ways that we split our beliefs and our behaviors and things that matter to us, right? So it's religion, and religion doesn't have to be a god that you pray to. It can be people that you put on pedestals and things like that, right? It could be a rock star, music star, or I'm grateful for Tim helping me today. So it just moves like that. So you've got religion, you've got language, you've got music, you've got art, and you've got tool making. And these are inside all of us. It helps us understand why we're also driven by different types of art can excite us, different types of music, like in language. It's inside all of us. And the one that I like to point out to people is tool making. Because what we're speaking about is these 5 natural dimensions that are inside all of us humans. And tool making is how we use our phones. Tool making is how we use our laptops and things, right?
Yeah.
And the danger is, particularly preparing for 2021, that we keep up our existing habits, just linking all of this together, right? Where we're using the tool. So we send out 100 messages on LinkedIn, we get 2 messages back and we think it's okay. If we just paused and look at not the functional side of our tool making, but the people that we're interacting with, that's where the opportunity sits. Because if you think about what tool making is, it's automation. That's what we do with tool making. We look to automate things as much as possible until we reach the point where we destruct it. That's it. That's the human nature, is that when it comes to tool making, we try to combine it with the efficiency trick to make it so easy that it's automated, and then we're left in a way where there's nobody else to blame.
Yeah.
Right. So we're sending out 100 messages, we're getting 2 responses. So who am I going to blame? The salespeople or the marketing people? And nobody wants to sit within that, right? And that's us analyzing in a really top line way one of the issues with society. So my point is to everybody for today, as a quick summary, is like, understand your habits and interrogate and pause for the ones that matter. Because changing your habits is quite easy if you've got the awareness and putting the effort. Why would you want to change your habits? Because the tool making is where you can make the biggest difference when it comes to using social media, because tool making is understanding the people that are going to engage with the tool, the people that you're sending the message to, the people that you want to interact with, not just spraying stuff out and hoping for the best.
Yeah. Martin, thank you so much for today. It's been so insightful. I've been looking forward for this actually all weekend, because when we had a conversation, you came up with so many things which are really groundbreaking. And I really appreciate you spending the time today. It's such insight. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on, Tim.
No, Martin, it's been fantastic. And remind everybody where they can get hold of you. So LinkedIn's the best place. Yeah,
LinkedIn's the easiest place. They can WhatsApp me if they want. 07743 482 437. Genuinely free problem solved for anybody. So it doesn't have to be business or commercial related. Just reach out and we'll help you where we can.
Martin, it's been fantastic. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Tim.
And hopefully talk to you again soon.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Thanks, Martin. Bye.
Bye.